today I wanted to make just a short little video about something that's kind of been bothering me. I know we got a lot of new players in DZ recently, and I noticed some of you probably are not using keybinds. Keybinds are very important to being able to push yourself in the game, just to be good in PvE, PvP, all aspects of the game. Key bindings help 100%. Some of you may have like a MMO mouse where you can bind a lot of different things to that MMO mouse and stuff. This is going to be mainly for people that maybe have like an extra two to three buttons on their mouse. Otherwise, this is mainly focused on having keybinds like on your keyboard. So to start with, the first thing you're going to want to do is just get a basic keybind setup. I guess what we should probably talk about first is movement. So like movement, some people may not know this. I know when you're positioning a boss as a tank, you're going to want to be able to move your character in such a way that the mob kind of follows you around and you control the mob. You don't let the mob's weird little nuances fuck you up and fuck your raid up. So what you want to do is, first thing, everyone should do this by the way, so you can cast spells on the move and position a lot better. Strafe left and right should be bound to A and D. This is going to help you be able to cast and move a lot easier, and it just makes for a much better fluid gameplay experience. So you can kind of hold down the right mouse button and then move your character, and if you let go of the right mouse button, it just kind of, you strafe back and forth. But if you go like that, then you can move around and position better. If you hold both mouse buttons down, you can also move around, which some people do that, but you don't have to if you don't want to. So that's just a few movement bindings that you should probably have. The other thing you want to do is have S key bound. If you're a tank anyways, casters and stuff probably can get away without having S key bound. If you're a tank, I definitely recommend having move backward bound. However, I would not get in the habit of using it often. There are very specific situations where S key is necessary though in classic. Those coming from retail probably understand that S key is not like, you don't need to have an S key in retail. You just roll your face across the keyboard and win. Anyways, moving on, basic keybinds I would start with, just so you can kind of get a feel for things, is this right here. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, your first 5 buttons, and then Q, E, because that's freed up because you rebound strafe. So you got Q, E, R, F, T, G, and V. T, G, and V right here. So you have all these keybinds here. These can all be different spells and whatnot, right? And that's a pretty good start. But another layer is shift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Q, E, R, F, T, G, V. So now you have double the keybinds, but they're just shift instead. So you move your pinky over, hold down shift, press like shift R, and there's a whole nother line of spells. And then you can go even further, deeper and deeper. Control 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Q, E, R, F, T, G, V again. So you're just adding more utility to your setup here, so you can have tons of options for getting all your spells on the board. So the next question you'll probably ask me is, how do I decide what goes where? So, and I'll log on to a different character to kind of show this, but there's kind of three or four main big binds that you need to be aware of. There's like your reflex abilities, which you should have bound to stuff that you need close to you at all times. So a reflex ability might be like kick or pummel for a warrior or a rogue. Typically across classes, I always use E for my interrupts. I know a lot of people that use E for their interrupts. I definitely think it's the best key for it. But you should use E for, you know, something that you need to access quickly. Same thing with Q. Q is another good reflex button. R, F, also very good. T is okay. T is good. You know, if you're used to playing like RTSs and stuff, you know, T isn't that far away for reflex ability. Neither is V or G. So a lot of people, you know, tend to, you know, use those for like reflex abilities. Then you have your spam abilities, stuff that you're going to be spamming. So like when you're behind a boss, for instance, and you're backstabbing the shit out of them, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, all very good options for that. Spamming abilities, basically abilities that are the main parts of your rotation that can go on those types of binds. 5 maybe a little too far out of the way for a spammable ability, so I would avoid that. Typically you want to use that for, you know, like a smaller cooldown. Kind of, you know, that kind of boils into this next point, which is there's small CDs and then there's big CDs. Big CDs, stuff like Mocking Blow, for example, and Battle Shout and stuff that I can only use once every 2 minutes. I might put those, you know, way over on like Control 3, Control 4. In fact, let me get on the Warrior. I'll show you guys kind of what my setup has. In each class you have, you probably are going to want to make sure that, because there are a few nuances with different classes, especially with Warriors with stances, keybinds get a little tricky. But one thing you want to keep in mind is this button up here under keybinds where it says character specific keybinds. I have this checked when I deviate from my normal keybind setup that I have, my default kind of keybind setup where I do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 QE and stuff. So on my Warrior you can see here I have for example Sapper. That's kind of a bigger CD that I'll use. That's on something that, you know, I'm not going to use very often. So that's Control 1. Mocking Blow, same thing. Control 2. I'm not going to use Mocking Blow very often, but when I do, you know, I don't want it somewhere where I'm on these other binds that I'm using commonly. Same with Battle Shout, Demo Shout. Demo Shout you're applying once every 30 seconds, which usually as a main tank you don't do that, but that's beside the point. Challenging Shout, Control 5. Battle Shout every 2 minutes, you know, Control 4. I have, and as you can see, these are kind of deviated from the standard binds, but that's because of stances, and you can kind of figure out your own setup for that. But like Control F, Intimidating Shout, that's a fairly easy bind because F is so close. Even though I'm hitting Control, I can still access it quickly. So I got 1 as Charge, 2 as Heroic Strike, 3 is Bloodthirst, 4 is Sunder Armor. You can kind of see like with 4, for example, like that's one of your main abilities, and same thing with 2. Like those are what I'm going to be using most of the time I'm tanking. Stuff like R, that probably, you know, that's probably not the best place for execute, but that's just kind of where I've had it for many years. Q, I have that as Overpower because that's kind of a reflex key. You know, once someone dodges, you want to be able to swap to battle stance and you know, get that off quickly. Same thing with Pummel. That's bound to E up here, and you can see here these are macroed in such a way that they automatically switch me stances. 5, for example, takes me into Berserker, and then I can just Whirlwind, or if I'm in battle stance I can just hit Shift 5 and then that spams out to get Berserker Rage. Then you can also see here I have battle stance as 1, so that allows me to instantly charge if I switch to battle stance as 1. Smaller cooldowns that I use, I typically bind them to like Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you can see here I have Berserker Rage bound to Shift 5, Intercept Shift 1, Death Wish is bound to Shift 3, and Blood Rage Shift 4. So those are kind of small CDs. Big CDs, you want to have them bound to stuff that you can access, you know, fairly quickly, but it's not essential, right? So you want to make sure you just keep your reflex keybinds, Q, E, R, F, T, G, V, you know, try to keep those on that first layer so you don't have to do any shift or control monkey business. And those are kind of basic keybind rules. The other thing that you want to consider is your utility binds. So for example, you can see over here I have bandages bound to B, obviously that just makes sense. I don't ever use B for anything else. I've never used B for anything else because it's so far out of the way. But you get used to reaching over and hitting B when you need to bandage. All my potions I bind to ZXC and Shift ZXC. So you can see I got whippers at Shift C, and all these bound to like Shift. And then kind of what I do during raids is I swap my potions around based on the fight when I need to use them. Some people may go the full mile, you know, and rebind all their potions to specific keys. I don't think that's necessary. I do think you need to have most of your ship bound, but you know, you probably don't need every single utility pot bound. That's a little excessive. Things like mana potions, you're probably going to have that as C, or you know, common potions that you are going to use all the time, or like demonic runes. I know some people don't like to have those bound, but yeah, you should have that bound, otherwise you'll look like a jackass. But that's pretty much it. I just want people to start using keybinds more. I know there's some of you out there that don't, so if you have questions, please contact me and we can go over different keybinds and figure something else out so we can get you playing the game better.